Call the legislative committee meeting to order. We have Commissioner Henderson, the chair, is not absent today, and the Representative Warren should be entering soon. The first thing I have is the minutes of August 2nd. Do I have any questions about the minutes of August 2nd? Thank you. We'll move on. This one, for the record, we do have Attorney Senate. First we have is a public hearing, draft year of 2023 paper, past year.
Okay. If you will,
Open up the public.
You have to plug it in. Did you plug it in now?
okay, haven't yet. Okay, plugged in. Now let's see if I can pull it up.
Madam Clerk, is there a revised copy or did I miss something?
Yes.
Thank you.
I like how you're using your.
Give me just a moment here and find this. I'll
It's
have it.
okay if I can pull it up. If I can't pull it up, it's just a blue little line
You
there.
had that.
Is there any background information? It's just,
He's.
there's no background information in here.
No.
Just one moment, for some reason I'm having.
Alex, just pull up your email and then go to the one you sent me.
All right. Because I had saved it on here and now for some reason I'm having difficulty finding it. I brought a few copies if anyone would like of the draft paper.
Thank you.
This is new.
Yes.
Good.
Apologize for the slight delay. It's just taking a couple of minutes. All right, here we go. Are we up now? Okay. We've gone through the process before reviewing capers. It's a HUD required annual performance report when a fiscal year is completed. Our fiscal year for 2022 ended June 30. The caper has to be submitted to HUD by September 28th. Before that, we have to have a public hearing. Yes. We have to have a public hearing and generally kind of go through what the performance has been and so forth. Plan is, we do, you may recall, a 5-year consolidated plan to outline what the basic objectives and so forth are to be met through the 5-year period, which in this instance was 2021 to 2025. That's carried out through annual action plans each 12-month period. And in our instance, July 1 to June 30 is an annual action plan, and that's what this is, reporting on the annual action plan that was just completed as of June 30. We report on our accomplishments and progress toward the consolidated plan's goals. It's required by HUD, a report on resources and investments, a report on goals and outcomes, a report on progress towards providing affordable housing, demographic composition of individuals and families assisted in citizen participation efforts. The CDBG allocation for the 2022 program year was $411,037, and the amount we expended during that program year was $634,840. And what that is, as you all know from the time I came on board, we've been trying to catch up on the spending. We did not achieve 80% requirement again, understandably, but you note here that we did spend $200,000 more than what we received. And hopefully next year it will be even higher than that. Goals and outcomes: expand and improve public infrastructure. That's our sidewalk program and so forth, where we presume that everyone in the city benefits from a program like sidewalks and so forth. So that's the approximate 9,000 plus people that are in the community. Housing rehabilitation. We assisted 10 households, 3 of those through the regular CDBG program and 7 more through the CDBG CV program. Provide public services for low, moderate income and special needs. 253 persons assisted. That essentially would have been the feeding program that is handled by the Community Nutrition Services, better known to us as Meals on Wheels, and also the distribution that's done through the Community Action Agency. Citizen participation has been made available to the public for a period of 15 days between August 25th to September 18 of 2023. The public hearing this evening, and the CAPER is available on the city's website for anyone that desires to review it. It will be submitted to HUD on or before September 28 of 2023. Any questions or comments can be emailed to me at alittle@bhcity.us, or here you can come to City Hall. And I've handed out a few copies here of the draft of the CAPER that will be submitted. And as you look through it, it pretty much outlines just exactly what what I just reviewed, the CARES Act accomplishments that were made. It details, as it goes on the next page, the infrastructure program, the access to public facilities, housing rehabilitation, the housing assistance program. It shows demolition, and the accomplishment is 0 because we didn't get any demolition done within the year, and that primarily is due to all of the prerequisites necessary, getting SHPO review on the properties that you're going to do, making sure you've got either clear title or court-ordered access to these properties, which it's a good time for me to mention also comes back to what we've been talking about recently with the construction review board, because if the property is cited and posted, when you've got a construction review board, they are allowed to appeal to that board. And if they fail to do so, or if they do appeal and don't comply, then we can go ahead and proceed with demolition. Without that, you wind up getting into a time-consuming court-ordered process, and that's all of the stuff that got in our way last year. So we are about the business now of trying to implement a demolition program in the program year that we just entered as of July 1, which is program year 2023. It details out a lot of other basic information as to what we did, including the distribution of the use of funds. Public services, $53,826.81 or 8.5%. Public improvements, $448,076.69 or 70.6% of the money. Affordable housing, which is housing rehab, $60,445.61, which is 9.5%. Administration, $72,490.74, which is 11.4%. And total CDBG expenditure of for 2022, $634,839. Again, it goes through further detail regarding it and also outlines monies expended and projects through the CARES Act. CR 10 on the next page shows describe the families assisted, including the racial and ethnic status of families assisted. White 9, Black African American 248, no Asian, no Indian, no Hawaiian, total 257, Hispanic 5, non-Hispanic 258. So it just continues to detail out what I've already reviewed with your resources and investments. Again, the $411,000 that we received new for that year, the total amount of the $634 that we expended. The bottom, it shows the CV funds. You'll recall that in fiscal year 2019 and 2020, we received two separate CV allocations. The first one was about 80,000 or thereabout. The second, which was considered CV3, we received the balance, which came to a total of $328,000, which was a special allocation that we received to try and counteract the effects of the COVID coronavirus pandemic. It was used to do things like buy the mask and the hand cleaners and things that we distributed. The additional special foods and protein that we added to the Meals on Wheels distribution that went to the homes of elderly people, and the housing rehab activity that was primarily focused on roofs, ventilation, and so forth, where as a result of the coronavirus thing, were potential for having situations occur that could aggravate the corona. So the goal of that was to either prevent, respond to, or prepare for coronavirus. That the rest of it basically just goes into further detail on exactly what was done and so forth. And as I said, it is available on the website, and as it's finalized, it'll be there through the end of the 15-day period, and then we'll finalize it and submit it to HUD. Does anyone have any questions or anything?
I got a question.
Yes. I'm sorry,
Do you ask from the audience or just the board?
Just 1 second.
I have to go through the chairman.
The caper is now open.
Yes.
Questions?
So I apologize for being late. So Ms. Blue, if you already covered this,
If I could, he just reminded me of one thing, and that is when we open the public hearing, it's for public comment first. And then we have to close it off, and then we'll allow comment from the board. So,
Comments?
yes.
I guess, my name is Cora Robinson, I live in the second ward. I have a question, and I think you talked about this caper.
Yes.
Does street and sidewalk projects? Is that correct?
Sidewalks, yes, street, no.
Okay, sidewalk projects.
Yes.
My question is, as I've seen the city put in sidewalks, I've been trying to determine how do you come up with where you're gonna start it?
The way we come up with it is a couple of years ago, we had Abin-Marsh do an assessment of the condition of sidewalks throughout the city. We look at that study to determine where the worst situations exist. And then after looking at that, I also look at the distribution of similarly situated sidewalks throughout the city so that I develop a balance across the wards. We don't want to be unfair to any of the commissioners or to the wards, so we then try to pick some in each of the wards, and we do that to the extent of the amount of money that we have, and then go forward. And this will be the third year, and we've done the same thing in each one of the 3 years.
May I add a suggestion?
Certainly.
I've lived in this city ever since I was born in 1956. Down the street in the Mercy Hospital, I was born. What I would like to see in the sidewalk improvements is that we do main streets where people are coming into our town and they have the infrastructure of a nice sidewalk and some tree lawn things, so it entices more people to come into our town. I see a lot of sidewalks being done in between the main streets, which I think would be better effective if we started doing some in the main, like Pipestone sidewalks, Empire sidewalks, Broadway, you know, those kind of places where people are traveling and can really see that we're making a difference. The side streets, I mean, I know they need sidewalks too. I've needed a sidewalk in front of my house ever since I've been there. And I was lucky when they put the water service line, they were able to replace a portion where there was a sidewalk that was built up from a tree that had roots and all of that kind of stuff in it, you know. And luckily they said, well, we're gonna give you 3 spaces here to cover that. But I just would love to see us do something on the main streets of our inner city, where we also probably, once they put them in, they're gonna do some lawn service, put some grass in or whatever. But just to give us, when people are traveling, I have people that come here all the time, and I'm almost embarrassed for them to look at the sidewalk in front of my house. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any other
More public comments?
public comments?
Commissioner Henry.
Sometime I've been asking for exit report for some of these allocations from community block grant money. So am I to assume that these are the exit reports that I've been asking for that's in this document?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then. It's kind of vague, but I can understand. Do you have more background information on these points that you're making? Concerning the outcome of the program?
I would have, yes,
You will?
I would.
Okay, thank you.
More public comment. Mr. Duncan.
Everybody else is saying, I got something I like to say.
You have the floor.
Downtown has a board or something, where they can get a lot of things done downtown. But when you go up and down Broadway, sidewalks are messed up. When you go all through the third ward, a lot of the sidewalks are, I do see the improvements, and I'm glad to see those. But I want to see all of them fixed. In each ward, before we even think about our downtown, we fought for these things to happen. Citizens fought for them, and nobody else did. So my main concern is the inner city, where we live. And when I say we, I mean Black people live. So I want to specify, we need to get us taken care of, bottom line. That's how I feel about it.
Thank you, Mr.
And thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
by way of explanation, what Mr. Duncan requested and stated there is consistent with what HUD requires. It's low, moderate income residents that we have to show that we're providing the services to, which in fact kind of gives us a little difficulty with focusing on just the main areas. I like the idea too, so it would be seen, but we're required to do it in the various neighborhoods that directly impact low and moderate income citizens. And that's why it's done the way it's done.
And I like to see better quality of work too. It's like when they do the streets, all of the sand left in the streets. When you go to other municipalities, when they finish fixing the street, there's not a lot of sand blowing for months on your car in your driveway all day, every day. I think you guys should fix that. Union was a mess, still is a mess. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Close the public hearing, open it up. Representative Warren, you had a question?
Yes, so
Comments, right?
I had a question.
Oh,
Was
question.
that possible?
Yes.
It's not, the pages aren't really numbered, but you had mentioned that you spent $634,000.
Yes,
And I see on here that we had carryover from previous years.
yes.
So have we, it's like spent everything for this year and waiting for an allocation for next year?
We have already, we've already received the allocation for next year, which began July 1. And this 411,000 was the allocation from the previous year that started July 1 of 2021 and went to June 30 of 2022.
Okay. And then the number I had saw in here that,
Got that wrong. Let me do that again.
so fiscal year is different. So I see what you're saying.
Yes,
You're
right.
saying 7-1 was the new
Yes,
fiscal year. So I
exactly.
understand what you're
Right.
saying. And then again, I don't have a page number here, but number of households served, we have on here 10 for the,
Mhm.
so is that a good number in your experience?
It is a good number under our circumstances. What happened is that we kind of got pulled to a halt. our process generally is that people who may qualify apply. All of their information is checked out against the requirements that HUD places for eligibility. Once they are determined eligible, we then send people out to look at their homes, do an assessment of what needs to be done, and then we write up a set of specifications and put it out and let 3 contractors or more give us estimates of costs for what it's going to take. They generally bid on it. And once that's done, then we make an award to the generally the lowest responsible bidder, and the work proceeds. Now, that process itself, with all the requirements, was slow enough, but what happened to us the previous year is that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services lead line replacement program that is going on still in the various homes for people who met the eligibility requirements started. That's federally funded. Our program is federally funded. HUD would not stand for us going in doing the work. Then they decide that it's eligible for the pipes to be replaced. They got to tear open the walls, and then we spend federal money redoing what was already done. So that caused us to go into a close working relationship with MDHHS to identify homes that they had already completed doing their work on before we would go in and do our work. And that slowed it to a grinding halt. Now, the reason we were able to do more of them with the CV funds, which was 7 of the homes, that's because they concentrated primarily on ventilation, roofs, and things of that nature, where you didn't have to worry about the walls having to be opened and pipes done and so forth.
And this is the same funding as the minor and major home repair that's on our website, the CV, or is that totally a different program?
CV is a slightly different program, but the regular CDBG is one that we're talking about, yes.
I just got one question, Director Little. I'm looking at the extremely low income, so you help 2. So how bad was that? They were living in real bad conditions? The extremely low income, you said you helped 2.
That's, those are really, I mean, in our community, the average household income is only $21,000. So when we talk about extremely low, we're talking about a situation that's worse than that. Yes.
They're living in better conditions now, though, after the rehab.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
And I might add, through the combination of our program and the state's program in DHHS, there have been, I believe, they finished over 350 homes already, and they're still working on them. So there have been a lot of people who've really benefited very well from these programs, and I'm very pleased that the community has had that. And as a matter of fact, they are out here now still trying to, and we printed up and provided to a couple of ministers 300 application forms to take out to try to get people to go ahead and apply before the program would end. The Old Timers group, which I'm a member of, we had our parties up as Thursday last week up here at Hall Park, and some of the people actually stopped there while we were there trying to find out if there were people that would be interested that could qualify, and they had the forms. So I was really pleased about that they're really reaching out to people to provide this. I mean, as a result of it, people have had complete plumbing systems in their homes replaced, windows where they had lead in them, roofs, some of them as much as $35,000-$40,000 has been spent on them.
Thank you, Director Lewis. I want to thank you for the work you're doing with this program, so helping the people. So I'm sure there'll be more people put on applications.
Certainly.
Thank you. Was there one question from you?
Yeah, one question, the public hearing, is there a time frame for comment still on this?
Yes, we did that first and until everybody had commented, and then that's when we closed and opened it to.
I mean, now that it's actually
Oh.
out there on YouTube, is there another time frame?
Oh, yes, up until, let me see, I passed that, I forget the exact dates, it's in here. I believe this goes through, I believe, the 15th or something like that,
15th
of September.
of September?
I
Okay,
believe so, yes,
what is the date, I'm sorry?
September 6th.
yes.
Okay,
September 11th.
This is September 11th, okay,
September 11th is the last day of comment
yes.
period.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And I just asked a question.
Okay, Mr. Dunn.
When they finish the work, who is it that checks behind these guys? I mean, you have to sign off on it or something. The city manager, the mayor, who checks behind on the work?
Director Lewis.
The paid staff at the Southwest Michigan Community Action Agency, which is our subcontractor, they actually go behind and check what has been done. And then they ask the owner of the property to give any concerns that they have that have not been addressed, and they sign off on the quality of the work. I might also mention, I had previously mentioned when I talked about HUD's visit to us, where they spent an entire week. Part of that monitoring visit included us going to the homes, 3 of the homes, where we went to the door. We had it arranged in advance that we were coming. We went in the house, looked at the actual work that was done, got comments from the owners as to whether they were satisfied or not. And I'm proud and pleased to say that the owners were very happy and smiling about the work that they received.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Public hearing. Next on the agenda, we have appointment to the Dial-A-Ride Board, Virgil Hatcher. Step up, Virgil.
You want to be front and center, huh?
Yeah, today is your day. Today is your day.
Well, let's have part of it be my day. I had a full day.
It's a good day.
Yeah.
Come before us to be appointed on the Dial-A-Ride Board. Tell us
Yes.
a little about yourself or why you want to be on the Dial-A-Ride Board.
Well, first of all, I'm a citizen of Benton Harbor. My concerns of what happens in the city, be it transportation, be it city hall, be it public works, whatever it is, I have a general concern for it. But specifically, I work here in the downtown area, and the Dial-A-Ride has been something that I've always paid attention to in terms of it providing transportation to these 4 square miles and doing it as effectively as they can possibly do it. So I want to be a part of how that looks and how that works. And generally, I just have an interest in being a part of what's happening in the city.
Thank you for wanting to volunteer and serve. I see you on the Boards for Care as director and you're on the Downtown Authority, DDA.
Yes, yes.
Good.
Community Development Authority, yes.
Appreciate it. Thank you for Dollar Ride Board. Need some strong people with some good credentials and that want to move that Dollar Ride Board forward. Dollar Ride system.
Yes.
Have a passion, see you at different events, so you have a passion for the city. Any questions? Representative?
I don't have any questions, but I'm excited for you to take this opportunity to help the Dow Ride Board. And it was great.
Okay.
More, just 1 year.
Right, it's 1 year.
Oh, 1 year. You know what time they have meetings?
I don't. Matter of fact, this meeting here was somewhat of a surprise to me because I made my application, I think, on in July and sent it to the clerk's office. I hadn't heard anything back from them, but my friend and also co-appointee has told me about this meeting being held where they were going to confirm and swear me in as a board member or whatever this process is. I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, I'll make sure you get all the information from Dial Ride.
What time they meet once
I
a
don't
month?
attend Dial Ride, so.
What's she?
Fourth,
Yeah,
5:30, almost 4. I don't attend Dial Ride, so.
We'll move this forward to the full body commission at the next commission meeting.
Okay.
And look forward to, I support it. So I think you'll be a good asset to the Dollar Ride Board.
All right. Thank you so much,
Dial
Commissioner Nance.
Ride meets at 5:30 on the 4th Tuesday.
On the 4th Tuesday,
She'll be sending more information.
more information. Okay. Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, next we have appointment to the Dollar Ride Board, Cora Robinson.
That'd be me.
Okay, there you go.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
You want to be appointed, you have interest in the Dollar Ride.
I have interests, not just in the Dollar Ride Board, I have interest in this city.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm a lifetime member of this community.
Mhm.
I've been on boards. I'm a retiree of the courthouse. I was a probate registrar for a few years. I spent about 30 years there working. Benton Harbor Housing Commission Board, I served on for 15 years. Barron County Guardianship Board, I served about 7 years. I just think people have been asking me to step up. And one of the reasons I have not stepped up is because I want to be on a board where we're professional and we understand what a board functions are really, what your duties really are, so we are not stepping out of our boundaries.
Mhm.
That would be my goal, is to make sure that boards, if I'm on a board, that I want to operate within what our, what we're supposed to do. I've watched the city for 40 years. When I was 16, 17 years old, I participated in my first campaign. And that's when Charles Joseph was appointed as the mayor. That was how long my journey has been. I was hoping that in the 40 years that we see more changes. And the only way that we can make changes is that we have to have people that have a goal, have a dream, and are persistent and professional, and understand that sometimes we can agree to disagree, but we need to kind of come together and work more as a team. And that's what I think that one of the reasons why I asked my friend over there, who's very smart, is that if there was openings that come on a board where we both could be there, then we would have some like-minded thinking moving forward. And that we could be maybe role models and assist the process in a better direction. You know, Dollar Ride that transportation authority is very important to our area. And I know people want to come in and just kind of take it from us if we could. We have to be strong and we have to be professional and we have to do things right so we can keep this in our community. And that's why I'm here today.
Representative.
So I love what you said about professionalism and how you've been involved for 40 years. I think you'd be a great asset to the Dollar Ride.
I appreciate it.
So Clerk Moore, this make without a right board, 5, 4. Right, I think she'll be a good asset to team, come in as a team, you know, both terms for a year. I think it'd be great. You know, we need strong professionalism in that.
You need wisdom.
Leadership.
We're past 65, so we're senior citizens. We should have a lot of wisdom to give around.
So you'd be willing to make the meetings and make big decisions, move Dollar Ride forward as a team.
I'd be willing to do what I can do to move our city forward.
Thank you
Yes,
so
I
much.
would.
Thank
Yes,
you
I
so
would.
much. I can support that. We'll move this forward to the full body. Next commission meeting,
September 18th.
September 18th. We can vote on that.
Go from there.
That's right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everyone, sir. Thank you for coming.
Yep.
Right. Next, we have resolution to repeal chapter 7 of the City of Benton Harbor Code of Ordinances. Dennis?
Thank you, Commissioner Isom. Ms. Warren?
Yep.
Ms. Warren, at all. We have been working very diligently in reference to code compliance and our ordinances with updating some things. We're going to talk about 3 chapters we're going to ask the commission to make some amendments to. 2 of them are really low hanging fruit, be very quick. Chapter 11, we're going to ask ultimately that gets passed to another committee for review. So that
Tell
is.
your mind, Chief, so people. People, yeah, one day here.
A little closer. How's that? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mitchell. All right, so again, ordinance revisions, we're looking at 3 ordinances. This is much better. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
You can hear yourself now, right?
Chapter 7, Chapter 11, Chapter 17. So the overview, the department is looking to update sections of the Code of Ordinance to current language and practices. What we're looking for, Chapter 7 is the ambulance service. Chapter 11, which is the building code, which is pretty voluminous, and then Chapter 17, fire prevention and control. So as far as Chapter 7, it's pretty simple. Really, the rationale is the city no longer operates an autonomous ambulance service. So there's really no need to have an ordinance for it. The city's ambulance service is Medic One. The service is owned by multiple municipalities who share a governing board. So we think that really there's no reason to have that language in there, and it's kind of low-hanging fruit. So our recommendation would be that Chapter 7 be repealed in its entirety out of the Code of Ordinance. Pretty simple. If you have any questions, Fire Marshal Gasman can answer those, but it's fairly simple.
I'll just add one thing, that the way the state law reads now, there's really no reason for that ordinance whatsoever. There's nobody that could start up their own ambulance service and come in Benton Harbor. It's not the way it works. You have to have a 911 contract in the county, and it's impossible. So, matter of fact, Pride Care just lost their ambulance service because they lost the last 911 contract they had, so.
Wipe out, repeal the whole chapter.
Yes, sir. So that's why we're here on Chapter 7. We'll take it one at a time. Any questions on this one? Right. Let's move forward. Fire prevention and control, chapter 17. That's a chapter obviously for fire prevention and control, for fire service prevention, inspections. So our rationale for bringing this before the commission is the city no longer uses building official and code administrators standards, which was known as BOCA. The standard hasn't been updated since, I think we adopted it in 1990. I don't think it's been, I can't find any evidence it's been updated since 1992. So BOCA is, although they have a website, no one maintains it, but it's a standard that I don't know who uses it anymore. So we currently use the International Fire Code for fire code standards. So our recommendation would be to replace every instance of BOCA, replace it with the appropriate section of IFC or actually NFPA, which yeah, I missed that one. The IFC, which is the International Fire Code. And the city automatically adopt the most current standard of the IFC, just like we do for the IPMC. So if 2021 or 2023 comes out, it automatically is adopted by the city. So that's really it. And we want to make sure that there's no sticky standard that is out of date we're not using. We want to make sure we have the most updated information as far as the standards. Again, the International Fire Code comes directly from the International Code Council, which is used across the entire globe.
Just to add to that, it actually mentions International Fire Code in there already. For some reason, when that got put in, BOCA didn't get pulled out. So.
And Attorney Seneca, you've been on this.
Yes, everything they said is accurate.
Thank you. And she, I forgot to mention, I was going to mention that she has been in the process and has reviewed. Actually, she was with alacrity, so I appreciate that. Thanks to the clerk, too.
I need to know who she is. Who she
That is
is.
interim attorney, Sarah Seneca.
Okay. First time I've seen her, heard of her.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you, sir. So for those first two, I think those are ready to go. I think the resolutions are done. We would ask if it's the committee's pleasure to forward those up to the final commission for resolution to approve.
So they both fit the city, right? These two,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Right. Move those forward.
Okay, thank you. The next one, chapter 11. Now that's kind of a dual. There's several things going on in chapter 11 for the building code. Again, one of the first obvious things is that we want to make sure that the building code references of BOCA are out of there as well. As a matter of fact, it starts in BOCA, then it fans to the other ones, 7 and 17 that I did first. I just did those because those are a little easier. So we want to update the building code and remove every reference of BOCA or any of its associating sections in there, and update that to, as we just stated, the current code that we are using as in chapter 7 and 17. So the other part of this animal is the current permit fee schedule for the city. If you can just kind of bear with me, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but that I want to definitely address. It's out of date and dreadfully less than our neighboring municipalities. And I have some examples to show you some empirical data for that. It's atrocious. The city is losing thousands of dollars per year due to dated permit fee schedule. We've always kind of thought that. We actually sat down, researched, talked to several people, pulled the data, and that is true. That's true. Additionally, our current fee schedule is currently written into the ordinance where other municipalities publish a separate table that is available upon request. So our ordinance, chapter 11, has of the 43 pages, probably 37 of them are just the fees. So they are literally locked in there. And unfortunately, people have problems finding them because we don't actually have that table that's outside of the fee schedule. So we're thinking that it's probably more efficient to not have those in there. And then lastly, in order to be up to date as well as competitive, what we're going to be asking is Benton Township, Royalton Township, and St. Joe Township have already adopted the Michigan Universal Building Code, actually 97 should be on there, fee schedule. So I have an example of that. The comparison of the data I'm going to show you will be from that schedule. So again, right now we know for a fact, Benton Township, Royalton, and St. Joe use the same schedule. Again, as we'll see by the data, is very, very not in line with where we are. So our recommendation would be this, that every reference to BOCA and other out-of-date standards be removed. The current scheduled permit fees be updated and amended to the state of Michigan UBC 97 fee schedule. There's a formula for that. And then the current fee schedule that is currently written into their ordinance be removed and published in a separate table that is available upon request. The clerk actually has an idea for that. She can probably say it better than I can. She's smarter than me, but it will be much cleaner and easier to maneuver. And then when there are updates, if we were to adopt UBC 97 and there are updates, it's just easy. We just replace, the commission would vote on the updated fee table. And the city, that the city match its municipal partners in adopting the UBC 97 fee schedule. And then proposed fee schedule, let me back up here. And clerk, if you can click on where it says fee schedule. Yes, ma'am. Okay, and those are actually been updated. So there was, I think Royalton and Benton Township adopted the one from 922, but it gives you an idea. Again, if you look at ours, it's very voluminous, but it simplifies it and breaks down what that schedule is. You go out of that, I'm looking for a different.
And the city is losing money.
Oh, I'm about to show you.
Can I see that fee schedule again, please?
That's the formula of it I'm looking for.
Whose fee schedule is that?
That is the state of Michigan, what we're asking that the commission consider adopting in place of ours.
I can't see that. Is that also in our paperwork or no? I can't. I don't know if you.
It's too small. Actually, really, don't worry about that. Pull that down where it says permit fee schedule is out of date on chapter 11, that page. All right, let's continue. Go to the first one. God, I got a clicker. Second, yeah. Here we go. So go to for me. Yeah, that's the right tab. So here is where the issue is. Up front, and Kirk, you might can make that bigger so they can see it. Up front, the first basically 5 to 50,000, we're competitive for the most part. You see that where, it's a difference of $8, $13, $17, $25, $26. But here is the problem. You start to see the tide turn, you get about to 50, let me finish first, $50,000. Now you see a negative 382. So, clerk, if you can go to the next tab that says 101 to 988, here is where we are getting drenched. So just again, these are samples of a very big scale. If we look at $101,000, can I please finish? Then you can ask your question, please. you look at $101,000, the difference, we're $600 less than basically Benton Township, Royalton, and St. Joe Township. You're $201,000. We're $949 less. If you go to 201,000, 1290 less, and so on. So you see, currently, the fees that we're charging, and especially with the developments that are coming into town, the things that Mr. Little are working on, Mr. Mitchell are working on, multi-million dollar developments, several $100,000 developments. You see here again, $500,000. We're charging $33,713. And I don't know where the little change came from. Whereas the other municipalities, according to the state of Michigan, charge $53.51. So right there, we're $19.80 less for that amount. Go down to $988. That's the bottom of the scale. Forgot to be $1 million. We're charging $57.80, $78. But the going rate, according to those municipalities, and that state wage scale is $92.52. So we're $3,474 less than other municipalities. So I would, it's obviously for you to discuss. Obviously, we want to be competitive and we want to be able to attract. But at the same token, I don't think we want to cut off our nose to spite our face, especially if I think maybe Attorney Seneca might can speak to this from experience with other municipalities. This is probably an extremely wise move for the city because we all know, we've all said it here. I've heard all 9 people say that we are not capturing money that the city should be rightfully getting. And we're not saying that we want to overdo it. All we're saying is this line up with the state standard.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would just add too, that you have to be able to cover your expenses in the building department. This is how you do it. So if you're way under what everyone else is charging, but you have very similar costs involved, you're hurting yourself by not adopting this.
Thank you.
So we go back to the slide, Madam Clerk. Then we say next steps. Here's what we're recommending for chapter 17 and 7. That the legislative committee by consensus recommend to the full commission for resolution to approve amendments to chapter 7 and 17. Proposed amendment chapter 11 that the legislative committee by consensus forward on the proposal to update permit fees to the Personnel and Finance Committee for vetting and ultimate recommendation to the full commission. And ultimately, publications of all amended chapters that the city clerk, of course, upon approval of all this, serve public notice of all amendments approved. And that is presentation for these. Feel any questions on those now?
Thank you, Chief McGinnis, for the recommendations. State advances that we approve all this. How long will it take for it to, months to be established, to be just like that? Soon we okay it?
We're at 80% right now on 11,
Mm-hmm.
and that 20% is vetting and you guys saying go. And I think the clerk probably answered the question better than I on how long that takes is the effective date that the commission sets.
So it would actually be effective the date that it gets published.
In the newspaper and all that. Any questions?
I think it's a no-brainer.
Any questions, Commissioner Henry?
So if we got $1 million project right now and we don't approve this till next month, are we retroactive to these fees or are we stuck in where we are now?
I don't know.
I think that would be dependent on when they pull the building permit.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. And does this money, extra cash flow, go right into the general fund?
And it goes into the building.
Building,
I'm sorry,
it goes into the building fund,
it goes into the building fund?
yes.
It's basically general fund.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. What is a building fund? I've been here for a long time. I never heard we had a building fund.
So I think you're right, actually. I think when money is brought in, I think, again, this is a street cop trying to explain this, but it has to be named somewhere. So if money comes in for building funds and permits, it would go there. If money comes in for, say, police tickets, it would go there. But ultimately, the building fund is just an arm of the general fund.
Yes.
So your answer is yes,
Okay,
yes, and yes.
I got
It
you.
would be allocated to buildings since it was from a building permit,
Be under the general.
but it's still under the general fund.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
Any more questions about amendments and changing? So do some of those contractors know that it's a difference and they just don't?
Yes, sir, I believe that they do.
They know. I
And I would argue why when they look at our fees, and Mr. Reed could probably speak to this, they look at the sheet like, oh yeah, let's go. Can I get my paper, I'm good to go? Yeah. So
Been going on a while then.
it has been. But, I thank my staff and leadership of Mr. Mitchell for letting us take on this study. We've dug into the weeds on this. This is what we come up, this is hard data.
Good job. Good job. Any more questions?
I have a question, but I don't know if it's pertaining to that, and if I can ask the question, because I know the inspection in the building code and all that's kind of a one. The other part of that is if you're looking at the inspections, upgrading, what it costs to build projects, what are we doing to enforce some of the violations that we have now with some of our structures? Proper building code, yeah. I'm just wondering if that's gonna be looked at, because that's kind of needs to be updated as well.
I'd love to answer that. So thank you for that
You're welcome.
question. I love pointed questions. So here is what we're doing. And and I was hoping, hoping that question would come up. So I've said before, I don't know if you've been at meetings here, that for several years, we as co-compliance inspection before, whatever you want to call it, have not been operating to the efficiency that we should. Part of that issue is that we don't have certain systems, policies, procedures in place. So when there's a changeover, we lose a staff, it's like we've lost things. So right now, although it might be frustrating to some residents, okay, I see trash like right now. I see vehicles right now. I hear music right now. Until we get the foundation and the infrastructure in place to be able to start to incorporate those systems, we'll still spin our wheels. With that being said, one of the first things we did, we're working on, we had a meeting today, is we don't even have the right software, quite frankly, not being totally transparent, to even run co-compliance the way it should be as far as commercial buildings. So we found that out. We had training, and again, it is what it is. We didn't really necessarily know how to use the software that we had. So we got training. From that was illuminating some other things that we needed. And we started the process to get the things in place to be able to have systems in place. Now, with that being said, there becomes the staffing issue and getting to the point of being able to go out and look at commercial issues, residential issues, environmental issues, and make sure that when Mo or me or whoever goes and sees a pile of tires, 3 weeks from now, it's not lost in the shuffle and forgotten about, which we know is happening. So the short answer is we're trying to get these things in place. This is a small piece of a bigger puzzle. Without foundation, we won't be able to go anywhere. And I will say this publicly, and my promise to citizens, once we get 1 or 2 more pieces in place, you're going to see an exponential move towards getting some things addressed and getting some things addressed that have lasting solutions. That's what we're lacking.
So the other part of that, since you don't have the support, bringing these fees up to where they need to be. And money's going into the building code. Will that create some funding to get you to make some changes here? So staffing and those kind of things?
Absolutely. So you see how the circle
Yeah.
works.
Okay.
It's like a cycle of life. Mr. Mitchell's, his dream is to have at least one inspection per ward. There's 4 people out there at any given moment, plus the specialty guys. So I think we can get there.
Together we can do it.
Go Lions.
Go Lions. All right, any more questions about the amendments? Next, we have update on the Construction Board of Appeals.
Okay, very quickly with that, clerk. So in starting to dig into this, we found that we have a Construction Board of Appeals. That's going to be impossible to read. We have a Construction Board of Appeals that's been defunct since 2015. I'm assuming there's been no appeals that have come in. But that is something that is hugely important. You heard Mr. Little kind of refer to it in his hearing. But not only is it important, especially with the volume and level of construction in which we're seeing happening and will happen, we have to have that board, and we have to have it by law. So from the IMPC, the International Property Maintenance Code that we operate out of, requires it, and the state of Michigan with the Act 230 of 1972, the Rosen-Hale Single State Construction Code Act, also require us to have a construction board of appeals. Again, it's been defunct, and everyone on that board is, for the most part, no longer on it. So one of the things that we've been really, really working towards, in addition to doing the research on these other things, is one, getting the construction board up to par. So you'll see maybe next month we'll bring the recommendations to update the current ordinance, as well as the Construction Board of Appeal bylaws that need to be updated. It's really low hanging fruit. Updating IPMC, for example, 108 in 2015 is now 111 in 2021, updating those sections. And by law, we have to have a minimum of 3, but a max of 7. So right now, we do have one commitment from a person who worked at basically Abermarsh, who was on the board on there. And if we get 2 more, at least we'll have a board to be in play. The commission would have to obviously appoint them and get it going. And we would say that would be, as soon as we get that established with names that can be, that's qualified by law. It's qualified by law, and it's right there. Get that going as soon as possible. One, that we're in compliance with the law. Right now, we're out of compliance. And 2, because we have all these things coming up, and we got Mo and Loyal on the prowl out there, we're going to probably get some things that need to come to that board. So when that is done, I think we'll be ready to go. I'm not sure how long. Is that the same process, Madam Clerk, as when it's published? Okay. So that's important. We got to have it. I think we need to move like as quickly as possible on that. And even if it might even come down to maybe another, I don't like going to other committee meetings that's not apropos to that committee, but if need be, we get that in place, get those names, and have the commission vote on that. It's a short version.
Clerk Morrison, how many? We just got one, no application.
There's one potential applicant at the moment,
Qualified.
qualified.
What are the qualifications?
Very
There you go.
Very nebulous. Says Construction Board of Appeals. Here we go. A member of the Board of Appeals shall be qualified by experience or training to perform the duties of members of the Board of Appeals.
So, what does that mean? Construction experience?
Yeah.
Background, reading
Yeah.
blueprints?
Yes.
I would say yes, because that's the law. You read how nebulous it is.
It's really loose,
Mm-hmm.
so you can fill in what you want, but it should be a little more specific.
You gotta talk to Andrews on that.
There's almost an inference, because to be a contractor, you have to be licensed with the state of Michigan. So there's, even though it doesn't say that in this section, there's an inference that to be on the Construction Board of Appeals, you have to be a licensed contractor. And that's what's so hard. That's why it's so hard to find people, because contractors are so busy, and to get them to sit on a Board of Appeals for a local municipality is really difficult. So that's part of the problem here, is just finding people who are licensed contractors and who have the time to serve.
So, Madam, Attorney Seneca, so she raised a point, we kind of talked about it very briefly, because it is so nebulous. Does plan reading, or if people sit on the planning commission who have zoning experience, have, what are those flippy out thingies? Plan reviewers, we can make the argument that that qualifies.
We can, if it was challenged. I mean, there's also always another process, right? There's always another appeal. So if your local construction board of appeals has someone on it that isn't a licensed contractor, and that vote makes the difference in a particular case, what would happen is it would go to the state. That person who feels aggrieved by the decision, who disagrees, would be able to go to the state board of appeals, and then they go before a whole different board. So you could have someone who is qualified on the planning commission and on the construction board of appeals, because one is zoning and one is building. It's based solely on the building code. There's no zoning issues on the construction board of appeals. So you could have someone who's well versed in both.
Do they have to be residents of the city of Benton Harbor, or?
Ooh, good question.
I don't
Because that
believe
limits your resources as well.
it does. So I can tell you what I've seen in other communities. Right now, there's such a lack of people who are willing to do this, that there's actually a group that I know that is sort of helping other communities out, and they're even going to different counties and helping these smaller townships in like Cass County and acting as their construction board of appeals, because there's no one locally who's either willing or able to act. So you don't have to be local. I think it always benefits us to have someone local. But if there isn't someone local, you can look outside of your borders for people to help.
Is there a stipend?
No.
Right now, no, but I can tell you other communities are paying, because again, to get a contractor to step away from their profession to do an hour's worth of an appeal, a lot of people are starting to pay, even though that wasn't the tradition even, 10 years ago.
Now, is that a slippery slope? So if we were to pay them, planning says pay us, and another committee says pay us.
Right? It is. So it's a tough call. I think you're always gonna have people who are civic minded, who are willing to donate some of their time for that. So I think you always go with that first, because that's what the city's always done. And if you absolutely can't find anyone and you become desperate, then you have to look at some alternatives. But I think you have always been able to find good volunteers, and that's really important.
What about retirees? Is that the same person if they're not currently licensed? You're in the same situation if they're retired?
Yes, it would be a little bit, somebody could question and say, well, you're not licensed anymore. But if they've worked in the construction industry for years and years, or as their entire career, and they just let their license go because they're not active, I think you have a pretty strong case that they know what they're doing.
More questions? Oh, Commissioner Henry.
I don't always bring the human issue into it. When you have a board of appeal, you have a person or an entity that feels like they've gotten a wrong end or something is wrong, and they appeal. Let me bring the human to that. If you bring in a lot of outsiders, and we've had this before, we've had this board before. Let me give you a little history. So this board was there before, and we had a lot of outsiders, and they didn't show that compassion that we wanted. So now we're gonna reestablish this. Let's look at it in a different manner as to what the outcome, what we want the outcome of these appeals, especially from our business partners and our residents. So let's look at it in a human way instead of a brick and mortar way. I always have to throw that in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this is gonna be able to go to,
Okay, we move this forward to the full body.
no.
No,
Construction.
Why
This is
goes
just,
to the
this
side?
this is just info.
The other ones, yeah, we moved them. Chapter,
We'll take chapter 11 to personnel and finance with the fee schedule
yeah,
next week. No, 2 weeks.
Okay, thanks.
that's it. Next, we have discussion of responsible contracting policy. Discussion. Anybody with information on that? Responsible contracting policy. Yeah,
Yeah, so you got, with your packet, you got a handout with a
Right.
lot of different questions in it.
first,
And I think the main thing that I wanted to highlight is that even if the commission were to put this policy in effect, like, let's say that on September 18th, the commission votes on this, there is a ton of staff work involved. There's forms that need to be created, there's 2 separate forms that would need to be created, and it requires a complaint form. There's a lot of administrative work to this. So I wanted everybody to be aware, it wouldn't be something you can pass and then the next day, the staff would just do this, because there's a considerable amount of information you're requesting from contractors. And this has been passed in other communities around the state, so I always think that's good, because we can look at them and we can say, well, has this worked in other places? It does work in other places. It's mainly, this is mainly done on the east side of the state, where they do have bigger cities and they do have more contractors. I outlined just a couple thoughts I had that I wanted everyone to think about. I don't know that a decision needs to be made tonight by the committee, but I think it's things that everyone needs to think about. The scoring is also a little bit subjective. It's just anytime you take on a new policy, if someone doesn't like it, they can challenge it. So we need to be aware, we need to be really careful. It's gonna take a while, I guess is what I'm saying. There's a lot of staff work, staff time, and administrative consideration that goes into this. So if you had a project that you needed to get bid really quick, you have to be aware that this policy sort of delays that, because the staff time that's involved is significant. They're looking at a lot of different factors. I think the policy itself was 7 or 8 pages, so there's a lot of work, 8 pages, there's a lot of work involved. There's enforcement provisions, and there is scoring involved, where you're looking at bids and you're looking at contractors and you're scoring, and they're getting 25% of the bid score is based on one thing, and then 10% is based on another. So I really wanted to highlight that there's a lot of staff time involved, and I wanted to make sure the staff has that capacity, and that when we, if this is passed, that we're ready to hit the ground running. I didn't want anyone to be under the impression that you could pass this and just the next day, this is in effect. It's gonna take a while. I would say if it got passed in October, it would be effective in January to get everything ready. There's a ton of information that's required under this policy, so contractors have to send information that they would consider to be confidential. It talks about their audit reports, so these are private businesses, these are not public entities. Our audit as a city is subject to public review, but a private contractor, they don't show anyone their audit report, so they would have to agree to give you a copy of their audit, to give you financials. Then there has to be a system in place to keep all that information confidential. So there's a lot to this. I am definitely not saying you shouldn't do it. It's legal. You have the legislative authority to do this as a city commission. I just wanted you to be aware there's a big process that has to occur before this would come into effect.
So what part of staff are your interests? What staff?
It would be a lot of work for the clerk and the city manager.
They can do it.
Any questions
Raise your
on,
hand.
any questions on contracting policy? Ms. Henry, got any questions on this?
Well, I know change is really hard to come by.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're changing stop real quick and make a turn, going to another direction, it's not an easy task. But from the history, the other municipalities have used this policy. It's working for them. And I can see it working for Benton Harbor, especially when the state of Michigan is giving us a lot of assistance for entrepreneurs as well as apprenticeship training and the construction. And the state of Michigan has also took the right of work thing, and everything is falling in place if we just follow back to this human thing. If we follow this path that the state is pushing us in and that humanistic things are pushing us to, we'll be able to relieve some of the poverty in our community. Yeah, you got somebody that give you their personal financial information, you're gonna have some trust there. They're going to be union contractors or something. They're going to be union contractors. They're going to attract union workers. That means training. It's a lot to do, but I think that the final outcome will benefit Benton Harbor and the citizens, the residents of Benton Harbor. Our contractors, the ones that did the greatest job, came from union contractors. If you look at the work they did, they put in real concrete curbs and they did a lot of extra work because those guys have been trained to be professionals. And especially if you get somebody to give you their financial records, you're friends for life. So let's move forward on this, and I'll thank our attorney for opening up to that. Yes, there is some work to be done, but it's okay to do the work. And I know the city manager and the clerk are qualified, and we're not trying to push them and say do it tomorrow. As they find time, this is gonna happen, and we're all gonna benefit from it.
Attorney, do we have a draft? You got a draft made up, or it's just?
Yeah, so there is a draft, hopefully it was in your packet, and there was just
No.
one.
I've seen it plenty of times.
Okay, there was just one question I wanted to ask the committee, and I wanted, obviously, the commission too, to think about this.
Okay.
So right now, we mentioned there's a lot of work, there's probably dozens of hours of work that goes into this whole process. My thought was to think about what the amount of the project would be that you would want to spend that amount of time for the staff. So I guess what I'm really getting at, and I'll give you an example, on the east side of the state, the city of Royal Oak has a $250,000 limit. So for projects $250,000 and over, they have said, we think it's worth going through all this work. Put the staff through this process for a project 250 and over. Your draft has 100,000 and over. If you might want to do a consideration of how many projects of $100,000 and over. Do you have 20 projects that are 100,000 and over? You might have to have one staff member just working on this. But if you make the amount 250 or 350, it kind of gives you an idea on those. So on those bigger projects, on the really important projects, this policy would apply. But that is something that's, again, a legislative decision. At what point do you sort of break even where it's worth it to have all that staff time put in? Probably not 100,000, that's probably too low. But I don't know how high you would want to go with that.
Something to think about. We got a lot of projects that
That are smaller.
25, 30, 50. Which one's discuss? Let's get our limit.
This will also go along with our other resolutions for 25% go to small minority contractors, as well as Section 3. Now, these projects have been here for 30 years. Well, Section 3 hasn't, but the other ones, and we've never used it. Maybe once on the $14 million water plant job. But we never used it. Now is the time for us to use it. Our apprenticeships programs are here. People are going to get that kind of trade jobs. Now is the time. Wouldn't it be nice for your grandson to be able to work in their community with a trade.
That'd have been something we could have used on the lead line replacement project. What's the next step?
So if it really comes down to if the committee wants to pass this on, I know the commission has looked at this before and it's probably been out there for a long time. If, you know, I don't know if this should go to personnel for more discussion with staff. That's really a matter for,
Can you take it one more time, Commissioner Henry?
You wanna kick it down the road
No, see,
to
we
personnel
can't-
one more time?
You wanna get it
I
right?
mean, I'm really disappointed
Don't be,
that it's here now, we're talking about it again. I'm really disappointed
we gotta set a
that we're
limit.
talking about
We
it,
gotta set a limit.
but
it's my fault because
no, it's not, cause we need to
So what's-
vet it out completely. I say, kick it down the road one more time,
and that-
or many more times,
No, that's it.
as long as when we come down at the end of the road, it's the right thing.
We gotta set our limit.
Yeah, I think you need to set a limit on the what size project justifies all the work that's gonna go in by the staff? I don't think it's 100,000 and that's what's in there now, so I think that for sure needs to be changed. The question is, how high do you wanna go? Is 250 the number? I mean, that's like what the city of Royal Oak is using. Maybe it's 300. With the cost of projects now, it is hard to do any sort of public works project under 300,000. So almost all of your projects are going to be over that. That's something to consider. And I think the other thing is, what date do you make it effective? Because even if you have this, let's say you adopt this at your first October meeting, which is very likely, I think you would have to put a January 1st start date to give the staff time to create all the forms they need, and to get everything to get their systems in place so that they can get this done in a timely manner. In addition, all their other duties.
Yes, definitely.
So those are the two things, the number and then the time.
Definitely, because we have more.
2 weeks.
We got the major, fair project, road project and coming, Fair Street. Empire,
But that's what you discover what those is.
personnel, finance.
2 weeks.
Yeah, but I mean, if that's the only thing, why don't you just set it?
Just say it,
Yeah,
Chair.
just do it.
And again, I take the blame for this because I haven't been here for all the discussions. So if you feel that, I think the commission could probably come up with those two details.
No, do it.
Yeah, in a couple
Yeah.
of weeks.
Oh, decide now? Yeah, this committee certainly has the ability to make that recommendation.
250.
So we would put that in the draft, that would
Yeah,
go.
and the draft, put 250.
Why you say
350.
250?
Excuse me.
It's
I'm
a good-
asking
Okay,
you.
wait a minute, that's
Why
a
you
good
say
number.
250?
We had, when was it at first? 100.
So in the proposed, it's 100,000 and I'm just saying it's a lot of work for a $100,000 project. But it's justified above that, like 250, 300, a lot of your big projects are gonna be around there.
Wow.
So you know better than I do what your big projects are around, but my suggestion was 250 or 300 and Royal Oak happens to be doing theirs at 250. So they've made that decision legislatively that that's a good number. You might be different, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
So I'm asking you, Chair, you
I
said
was good,
250.
we
Why
bumped
do
it
you
up
think
to-
it's 250?
Cause I know the
Because you
projects, the projects we've been having, been averaging
Well, that's the question.
over,
Yeah.
over three,
That was my question.
what, huh?
The average cost.
The average cost.
Yeah,
Yeah, the water project's been like 350
so
and
that's where it should be.
that's my thought. Getting,
Well, if you're saying the water projects have been 350, why not 300?
Why not 4?
see,
Well, that's over.
Where the roads were 200,
200,000?
yeah. We had some projects that was 125,000 now.
so all we gotta do is come
What you
together.
gonna do about it?
Come together.
So, I mean, you know,
Can we say 250?
we already having problems
Yes, we got
getting a
more.
hold, we're trying to grab hold of something that's gonna be sustainable for our children.
We got
So-
major projects coming too.
And we're gonna have more
More
projects.
projects.
And they're gonna, break them down.
Go ahead.
As soon as they realize that we gotta, they gonna break them down to 2 projects instead of 1.
Yeah.
This is the way they project, this is the way they do, this is the way they do things when they wanna get over. So I'm trying to stop them from doing what we've seen them do over and over.
But the call out is also the manpower, right? So the lower your number, the more, I mean, so we have to be realistic from a standpoint of manpower.
Mhm. Staff, yeah. Clerk Moore?
Well,
So
these are
just keep in
salary
mind too
people.
that this is
They
a
get paid by
policy. We're gonna adopt this as a policy, so if you do decide on 354, whatever it is, it's easy to change because it's a
Yeah.
policy versus an
Or
ordinance.
you can amend, yeah.
Well,
So
that's
it
what
can be changed.
250.
Do it right. Do it right the first time, and then you don't have to worry about changing it. Think about it before you do that.
Thank you,
Please,
Commissioner.
Jeff.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll bring it to personnel and finance, bro.
No, you don't need to take it to personal
Yeah.
finance.
He can't make, he
I
can't do
said
it now.
250, but I'm getting
Push
Oh,
back.
yeah.
Do it. Do it.
personnel, I mean,
Do it.
put 250.
Do it. Do it.
Am I sending this to personal and finance?
Are you?
Yes, discussion.
No. You said 250. Let's do it.
Well, send it to the full, send it to
You
the full
can't do
body.
nothing by itself.
Let's do
Send to
it.
the full body. Any more questions on 250? Let's do this. Move the city forward. Thank you, Representative Warren. Great job. Yes. Thank you, team members.
And Royal Oak don't look nothing like Ben Harbor.
Change this city
Please,
together.
please.
Meeting adjourned. Anything else? Any comments? Great job.
I got a comment.